certainly will. I think that's one of the key things. It's not going to create a single job, except for some people in indue, maybe somewhere very much not in this community, and it's going to be money there by the spent in the community. Yes.
Just moved here from Alice Springs and I was got the basic I've just moved here from Alice Springs and I've been on basic card. It took me 3 months to become exempt from the law. I had a balance around on my card and I wanted to use some of that money to pay my rent because it has to do with the property. If I wanted to I couldn't do that. Even though I provided couldn't do that. I then approached income management to get some funds put into my savings account so I could buy a second-hand purchasing. They declined me to do that as well. So they're forcing me to go to a Harvey Norman store and purchase something brand new, as opposed to buying something from a garage sale on the weekend because I run up income management and have an argument with things that I can't buy them out. So through Facebook, I swap sell. And I said, can't you get the seller to hold it for you? How embarrassing is that? To wait for Monday to come around. You can then ring income management while you're standing with the seller. It takes 20 minutes for them to answer your phone call. Then you say what you want and they go, okay, you need to speak to someone in income management team will put you through. You can be put on hold for up to 3 hours before you get put through to somebody to get a yes or no to your question. Meanwhile, the seller is standing there going, geez, I could have sold this, didn't have to wait one more up. So getting back to this lady's question about how much it costs to implement the program, right, moving from Alice Springs over to here, my card didn't work. My card didn't work at my local Foodworks shop where I couldn't purchase anything. If I went interstate, my card wouldn't work anywhere. So that meant I was limited to where I could go, what I could purchase, who I could purchase it from, and yet it costs so much money to implement a program that doesn't work.
My signal died in the middle of that. I'm glad you got signal.
When you are finally made exempt from your card, it takes 3 months. If you have any remaining funds on your account, they will not transfer that balance as a lump sum balance to your savings account. They will send it out to your savings account in $200 increments per fortnight. If after 12 months you still have a balance,
Kununurra and the Goldfields. So this is the fourth, but it's very different community. That's the only one, and it's the only one. The other 3 are existing already, and those trials go for another couple of years, I think. This legislation is solely for here, so there's nobody else. But obviously, if this one goes through, then
as a community, we should be outraged that this government is invading us, and that's the biggest key here tonight. Is we need to talk to our neighbours and our relatives and our friends and share this, and like Andrew said, really get up in arms about this, because why should we have to be the guinea pigs? This whole region, we're already struggling enough, and I mean, until someone tops themselves or extremely loses the plot, this government won't care. They don't care.
They won't even care then.
Yeah, it's...
We've got the highest unemployment rate. So we can only either continue to have the highest unemployment rate or no longer have the highest unemployment rate. So that means this card, in their eyes, will be a success.
But there's no jobs here for our kids.
Not necessarily an accident. And the unemployment rate even improves a little bit, they'll call that a win. So that's why we're the guinea pigs.
It'll improve because people...
Try and go to a few other people that haven't said anything yet, just to spread it around a little bit. So
It's basically a form of discrimination because the Labor Deputy Welfare recipient of the drug abuser
Yes.
and alcohol ban for a drug abuser. According to cases replied to the Minister of Bartlett in New South Wales and Brian Crocodile years about
That's not Centrelink. It can't be Centrelink people. They don't get that much money in a month.
Do we even get $5 million of welfare?
That's right. It's preposterous
in a month?
statement.
It's impossible financially, mathematically speaking.
No, that's not the new CDC.
He's supposed to know how to do maths because if you're an electrician and you don't know how to do
Yeah,
maths,
but he
you end
didn't
up
listen to
dead.
us from the start. He's had this,
He never asked us to listen to it.
yes.
Okay,
Well, my name's James. Unfortunately, Mr. Pitt, our local member, hasn't actually provided a community meeting where he is actually in front of the community and given people an opportunity to ask simple basic questions such as terms and conditions of use of the cashless debit card. We don't know anything about something as simple as the community panel, who is on the community panel, how many people are on it, if they have any experience in financial management, and what their role is. Does anyone have an answer? Because no one can seem to get an answer from them.
Well, I suspect.
can I just in regards to staff person here, take photographs of me where I go just to show that I actually do some work. Just the camera the whole time. So if anyone's got any problems with having that photo taken, please let us know.
You didn't ask that.
I'm Vicky from Youth Services in Bundaberg. Initially, when the card was going to be introduced to those service groups that said that they fully support Keith Pitt, I need to remind everyone here that is not what was pitched at those organisation meetings. The people who are sitting on the community panel will be people who are funded by the federal government, and it's in their interest to support that because that's their business. They're core businesses, people who are unemployed and delivering training to people who have high and complex needs. But I went to 3 meetings and I took some clients to those meetings as well who would be in this target group. The questions that they asked were valid. How will this be in my day-to-day business? How will I pay my rent? If I board with Nana, can I give her $100 a week? All of those were received positively. Now, the team from DSS were great. They were terrific people from the government that came in. But the application of the card is not what the marketing team came in and told us it was going to be. As I read more, and in particular from your site, I'm not against assistance for people who aren't managing. I fully support it. I initially supported the introduction of the card because I couldn't find any fault with it based on the information that I was given by those who were the decision makers at the time. Having dug a little deeper, and I'm not saying that they were lying, they were open to modelling the Hinckley area card based on what the community needed, and they said it's flexible. We will adjust it accordingly. What we do in Ceduna will be different to what we do in Bundaberg. We're trialling it. Now, from an organisational perspective, the target group that I've worked with, the 15 Years Frontline, are the target group who are going to be issued the card in the first rollout. The problem I have with it is 2 things. One, people aren't getting their questions answered effectively so that they're making informed decisions. And 2, Mr. Pitt has lied. He's lied to us as organisations when we went to those meetings, and he's lying now in the media because the information that he's, I guess, capturing from people to support the card, it's wrong. And it's wrong because the 1,000 people that attend the Breakfast Club are not kids who have no food on their table at home. They are kids that we've encouraged to link in peer support and an anti-bullying program. And it's excellent. And it does all of those things, and it's been doing it for a decade. To say that that is why young people attend those breakfast programs is a lie. And it's only supporting his view. And you're right, the person behind me that said that it's bashing people who are on welfare. It's making them feel as if they've done something wrong. Well, there's plenty of clients that I work with who don't do anything wrong, who have never breached their obligations. And if it is about correcting people who are lifelong welfare recipients and intergenerational welfare dependents and I've worked in Job Network for 7.5 years, as well as this, and I work with homelessness, I work with youth at risk, I'm in court, so I know what it is that he's talking about, and he is wrong. Those young people that are going to be targeted, even up to Gen Y, 34 years of age, they are not the problem, and definitely no reason for him to be able to turn around and restrict their income down to $6.70 in cash per day. I know they're going to problem solve, and it's not going to be a lawful solution.
Your organisation would be one of the community leaders that was strongly in support of it, its introduction here.
I was.
And to get that support, you've been duped.
I believe I wasn't given the full information.
Manipulated.
No, well, I know how to ask questions, and there wasn't anything there that stood out. Every question I asked, it was answered, and I was satisfied. I'm an information gatherer, I like that stuff. So when I asked those questions, will it be difficult for someone to pay their rent to Nana, or if they want to be able to go and buy something like a second-hand couch from a, like a garage sale or something like that, if you talk to them, this is what I was told, if you talk to them ahead of time and say, look, I need that, and you've got X amount quarantined over in your 80% that's put aside, then together you say, I will need it by this date, and up to $200 per month can be transferred over into the card that you're operating for your cash. And that gives people that opportunity. You can even do the background work and say, look, I've got 2 or 3 quotes, and this is a good way for me to be able to do it. I think this is my best price. So my understanding was that if there was a young person and we were planning, we were looking at their wheel of everything that you need to do to make life move forward, that if getting a bed or getting a lounge was one of those things to help them create a home, then they would be able to do that simply by, if they had those funds available in their 80% quarantine fund, that they would be able to request those funds to be made available into their cash card. Now, what I'm finding out through sites that I'm reading is that that isn't an easy flow. So the application of that transfer of that money is wrought with problems, administrative problems, which is across everything. Those day-to-day things for people that I'm working with who have high and complex needs, these are extra stressors in their lives. So it's not about the couch and it's not about the bed, it's about somebody else isn't listening to me. It's another person that's against me. I don't know whether the couch or the bed is the thing that's going to tip them over.
How is it going to help an unemployed or an addict?
It won't help them in that sense. That what will help, and here's, like, I'm not against a model, but I'm definitely against this model. Because this is not about managing welfare. This is about $10.8 billion that has gone to indue, 2.9 over to IT, and buried into that funding application is to test the commercial viability of privatising all welfare payments. Now it's very deep in the 2.9 billion. In the 7.9 billion, that's gone to indue to establish nothing more than what this looks like is a money laundering process. It's a third party to introduce in, to use taxpayers' dollars to move it over without you or I pay tax, my husband pays tax, without you or I being able to say, here's our tax dollars, we want it to go to welfare. It's going to go, here's your tax dollars, and we're going to give it to this person over here, let's call him Twiggy. We're going to give it to sorry for problem with fraud, I'm cranky about this because I don't believe all the information was made available to me. So that 7.9 billion establishes a private business or a private bank or a call it whatever you want to call it. That is just to get it up and started, let alone the $84 million that should be coming to this community. And that's only with the rollout of 6,400 that they're talking about. This is about privatising all welfare. So the very people in Bundaberg that are saying, oh, look, if you're not doing anything wrong, it shouldn't matter. If you're on a pension, it shouldn't matter because it's coming your way soon. You're next. And that's what you've got to say to people is, and your neighbours, is this is about you. This is about your money going somewhere else, fee for service, generating an interest for them so that they can use and invest any way they choose to before it finally comes back to you. It is not efficient and it's not effective and it probably isn't lawful.
And so just on that subject briefly, and Vicky, I have to say you're currently my new spirit animal.
Thank you very much.
Further to that is the fact that it's an LNP operated company.
It is.
It's no benefit and they're
They benefit
as a scam.
I understand, it's money laundering. But even that aside, even the economics of it, waste of money, everyone's being duped, that aside, it is an insult to the people in this community because it will not help the person that is dealing with alcoholism or substance misuse. We've got those services, that money needs to go to those agencies.
And the
If
legislation already exists.
It won't create a conflict.
Well, it's good to hear from the audience rather than hear from me. Anyway, just hear from other people.
They want to pay
Not the
their
back of the
employees
room,
or
yeah.
not.
Hi, my name is Graham. I'm an Indigenous person, obviously. When it first came out many years ago, it was targeted by the Indigenous community. We didn't hear anything from mainstream Australia. They put it in, they used all sorts of excuses about sexual abuse and alcohol, drugs, and all the rest of it. The successive governments haven't done anything about it. That was a trial. This is what I'm trying to make it was a trial. The still government's been going for about 10 years, and it never looks like it's going to end. But I've seen firsthand in the Northern Territory the results of the human results of the cashless card. And you want to see defeated people who are walking around already defeated, but could you imagine they don't have access? I hear people talking around here about accessing computers. These guys don't have computers. What goes in their bank account, that's it. They got accepted. They don't have any argument. They got accepted. But I'll tell you now, you'll see the crime rate here rise like you wouldn't see it, like you wouldn't believe. They're talking about on the news at the moment, the crime rate and the drugs it'll impact on this whole community here. And then you'll see the doubters out there saying, what's going on here? We've got a 40% unemployment rate here. You think the pig's been lying to us? He's taking the focus off this and putting the focus on us, the bloggers, and he's taking the focus off the infrastructure. He's not creating any infrastructure around here. The backpackers walking around here, they've got money in their pockets, okay, they're doing legal jobs. But they could be, those jobs they could be put onto the local people. Local people should be doing those sort of work. It's not the backpackers. We call them seagulls. They fly in and fly out. They're not contributing anything to the community or the economy. They're not. So, but I'm just saying that when you see the crime rates and the drug addicts coming around your house, remember, pick bought this into your community.
This isn't tip of the iceberg, as somebody alluded to earlier. This government has cut millions out of education, slashed apprenticeships, slashed TAFE, and now they're trying to attack the people that actually run the world. We need the money for your education, to create skills, to create a skilled workforce, to give our youth a chance to get a job. That's where the money should be going. It shouldn't be putting in the card that attacks the symptoms and not the cause. And as a teacher, working right, but I see kids turn up, and I see the kids, some of whom, yes, they do turn up hungry at school in the morning. Many of those do not have parents who would be part of this card.
Thank you for your comment. Senior over there, I'm just trying to make sure we keep the same.
experience of the intervention in the Northern Territory. I lived there when the intervention happened. I lived at Yirrkala, Aboriginal community there. And we noticed that crime went up, right? But really, key thing that went up was the suicide rate. And that's linked to a sense of hopelessness. And as a former gambling health counsellor here in Bundaberg, I can also say that the gambling problems are linked to a sense of hopelessness. So we're going to see more of these kind of social problems with the basic card. We actually know that because that's what the stats have told us from the Northern Territory.
See, four hands.
I'd appreciate nobody records me saying this. There's one psychiatrist in Bundaberg. There's one, and you can't go see that psychiatrist unless you're on a mental
I have to go to the Gold
unless
Coast to
you're on
get
a
my
mental
treatment.
health care plan. And you can't get on that mental health care plan unless you're like waiting on it, wanting to kill yourself. They'll send you to counsellors who don't know how to deal with you.
But the card will fix it.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. I just would point out that we did invite the local mayor. I think is away at the moment.
Really?
The mayor, Harvey Bailey, was present today. There's been a strong voice.
He's in a completely
And I
different
did email Heath Pitsonkos to let him know that it was on, but he was really advised. Another wasted email, unfortunately.
The Bundaberg mayor has never been in town for one of these meetings.
Sorry, can you just say that again?
Does a small business in town know what the cards are due to them? Because if they're not an authorised supplier, the person they're going to buy goods from has got to re-indue to get authorisation for that purchase.
Yeah.
A lot of these small businesses don't have FPOS facilities, well-known contractors and such. They're going to lose that fair bit of business on that because it's been advertised in the community.
It's the same as your normal debit card though.
That is part of the information as well, is that the membership agreement, a lot of people haven't read it, which means that you could be asked to be audited and you will meet those costs, so you have to pick those receipts of, so you've got an indue shoebox and a non-indue shoebox of customers. So who says people aren't going to know who's the difference?
And then you have to write on the receipt what they, or you know, if it doesn't say, like I used to work at the petrol station, if they buy something, you have to write down on that receipt what they've bought, give them the original, you print off another one and write on it what they've bought.
I just don't think enough information is out there for everybody involved in it.
How many
Merchants
years?
as well.
Like probably 7 years, that's how long
7
banks
years.
have to hold records for.
Yeah.
I think
So
the
you know.
fees are 2% by the way.
And the business has to
It's
fork
not like
out for all the
swiping card
privilege of
and
being
just
audited as
say,
well.
"I don't sign up for it."
Just a question. Our target area seems to be 18 to 35, is that correct? Do I get those figures right?
For this trial in this location, at this moment,
Yeah, 18 to under 36.
I think it's clear that we start will bring division to those that have work and to those that have no work. But also on the other side of things is why? Why are we giving this card in compared to what we have now? And what do we need to do as citizens in this country to say no, it's enough crap that we're talking about now. Why are we still talking about it now? 2 years later, we're still talking about it. 10 years later, we're still talking about it. You know, it seems to be a talk fest at the moment. It's, what is it from the, I mean, we've got the Modern Slavery Act in Parliament, sitting in Parliament at the moment, being debated. Now, that bill's been, people will live like slaves at the back end of this. Who do we charge for? Do we charge the government for this? Or are they going to pay the same as what their recommendations for business of 100 million to report on a daily basis? Are they going to charge each of the same profits? Or are they going to introduce this, lose the election, and then where do we go from then?
There's a couple of very good questions in there which are very explicitly political, and what I might do at the end when I finish off is I'll make some comments of my own. As I said, my main purpose tonight was to encourage your voices to be heard and for me to hear them, rather than me to give you a long political spiel, but nonetheless I think you've this is a political issue and that it isn't in isolation, as some of the comments have made very clear. So perhaps we'll give some commentary at the end about what might be done on that.
Can I just say something?
I just wanted to share a couple of things on my experiences that I've witnessed in my professional life, talking to people, and also personally. Professionally, I'm a social worker, so I listen to a lot of people. Hopefully, I listen to them. First of all, a number of my clients have told me that they've heard from friends, you know, just talking from each other. I can't qualify in any way, but they've stated that the people who are doing the wrong things, and I don't believe that's the majority of the people who would be put on the card, but the people who are doing the wrong things in terms of drugs, they agree to accept goods in lieu of cash. That worries me, because that means that people we don't target to buy TVs to convert it to drugs, and that's not really good for you. It means they're going to pay more for the drugs, basically, than they did for us. If that is the case, if that is all that they're going to trade on.
That's exactly.
Yeah, so it doesn't, I guess, it doesn't seem a deterrent to the figure who it's meant to be a deterrent for. Conversely, I've seen my clients do just amazing things with the little bit of money that they have, and I'm always in awe of the way they manage to stretch that dollar. And I don't think there's been near enough research into, and forgive the terminology, but the poor man's economy, in terms of you know, using Gumtree and Facebook Marketplace and things like that to get by. I had a client who was completely homeless, and she managed to set herself up in a little unit all for herself, just by buying furniture and fridges and things like the whole thing, a few $100s and sourcing it from you know, trading places and places like that, and swapping certain things she had with for other things. So there's not been nearly enough research into the poor man's economy and how that will impact them. And mostly the clients that I see do amazing things with the dollar. I couldn't do it. I don't think I could do it. But finally, as a personal experience, something that really worries me about the cashless welfare card is the indirect impact it has on our culture and our community. Already, just the discussion about the cashless welfare card seems to have given more permission to people to refer to people on social security as being welfare bludgers. Very recently, I had a close family member who had to go to Harvey Bay to receive a specialist service as a public patient, and the surgeon humiliated her for being a public patient. Now that has nothing to do with the cashless welfare card, but he complained about the fact that public patients were sending him broke, and why wouldn't she do it because she gets it for free? Now that's a cultural thing that around welfare blaming the poor person, and the card has only exacerbated that sort of stuff. So I'm really worried about what it would do to community cohesion and our dignity and respect as a community.
I just wanted to let people know, if you're wondering why we're videoing, we have a following of about 30,000 people around the country that will get to our meetings. We're allowed for a lot of people that are on disability that can't get out, people that don't have transport, many people on unemployment don't have the money to get places, they don't have cars. So we video all of the meetings that we do, all of the public events, all of our protests, even if we only get 5 people, because that makes our community inclusive. Everybody gets to be a part of it, and then when we put it on our pages, they're a part of it as well.
but there is always currency, regardless of whether there is cash. And I just wanted to say to you and to anybody else who may be sort of having a similar thought process in the room, I find that inconvenient. And I think it's a community we do, so there.
Okay, has anyone got any questions they want to ask or particular extra points they want to raise to the group?
Can I point out that I know somebody was put on the basics card because she's an addict, and the last I heard that this woman who's an addict, her daughter wants to use drugs, so she told her daughter she'd have to prostitute herself. And her daughter was 16 at the time that I found out about it, so I couldn't do anything about that. But apparently it's been going on for a while since they've been put on the basics card. And I want to point out that she knows how to brew alcohol from pretty much anything with a sugar content. She brew it from newspaper if she thought that the cellulose in newspaper, the ink wouldn't hurt her. And she buys groceries for people in the neighbourhood and sells groceries for cash. She'll buy $100 worth of groceries and get $70 cash for groceries. And she does this on the basics card. And the last I heard, I've distanced myself from this person now, but the last I heard, she and her daughter were raking in more money since they were put on the basics card than they were just when they were on welfare. So if people are determined to make alcohol, they will. And if people are determined to get drugs, they will. And taking control of a person's finances is not going to help anybody. It's just going to prove to that person that you are a big bully and you're a control freak and you're willing to abuse them just to put money in your own pocket. And that's my biggest thing against it. I'm on disability and it'll probably end up affecting me. But my biggest thing against this card is that it is straight up abuse. To take control of another person's agency when that person might have done absolutely nothing worse than just fail to get a job in a situation where there's 80 people for every vacant job. And that is wrong. That is just so un-Australian. It's just blatantly wrong.
I'll tell you what I'm doing tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, no, before I do that, is that should Mr. Pitt believe that the card will be effective because it's going to be spread like a wide net, young people up to 34, up to Gen Y, then the people who aren't coping are already known to agencies. They are known to the social workers. They are known to their job agencies because they have multiple breaches and they haven't attended. Now, often they can't access mainstream services. So instead of punishing someone who isn't able to meet those mutual obligations that they have by signing up to welfare, and taking that person and saying, I can see that even though we've both made an agreement for you to be able to do this, or we've made you exempt because you've got other circumstances, I'm going to do a referral to the existing agencies that we have. And if the demand is so high and we don't have enough services, then that's where that $84 million annually should come to Hinkler. And it definitely does need to come to Hinkler because we are, I think, highest in homelessness. And we lost our funding in 2014 for our accommodation program. Since 2014, we have run 52 beds, and we did that in partnership with local real estate agents, and we did that with some private homeowners who believed in giving young people an opportunity. So we could put them under a program that we wrote called Responsible Me, and a young person would rent a room, and that room would cost them $86.45 per week. Now, on the cashless debit card, they won't be able to do that. And that's 52 beds that have gone in Bundaberg because we couldn't get volunteers over the age of 55 to keep working in that program. So it had no funding, it's self-funded. But it was housing over 2,000 young people every year. Now, on Saturday they did a story about the refuge. Now, the refuge has 6 beds funded. It has 3 male, 3 female, but they can take 1 or 2 or or 3 if they are very high and complex needs. And if a young person, and I don't know what your experience is, but if you roll your eyes, you say shit or piss off, you're evicted from the refuge. Now that's their model and they do a great job there, but young people who are homeless are often a little bit cranky and they are going to say some stuff. And see, we have a harm minimisation, whereas the refuge has zero tolerance. So zero tolerance means if you're going to smoke weed out back because you've finally got yourself off ice, and that's how you're managing your substance misuse, you're going to be homeless. So then make the homeless all over again. And that's not even the ones that you're looking at, the secondary or the tertiary homeless, where everyone's moving around and around. But tomorrow, I want to give you a human story about how and why this card won't work. I received a phone call last week from my favourite social worker, who rings me when everybody else has said no. Why don't you renew services? She'll probably do it for you. So the phone call goes like this. The young guy is 16. He attends one of the local high schools and he wants to enrol, but he can't go back into grade 11 because his father, who's a single dad, has not paid the school fees. The school fees are about $1,100, which is very common, I want to say. I have a lot of grade 12s who cannot get their senior certificate because their school fees weren't paid because they had a family breakdown and they are the things that they're not bleeding, so we're not going to deal with that. You just keep going to school. So their achievement of finishing school is theirs and theirs alone. But he can't enrol because his school fees aren't paid. He's not on any payments because he hasn't got a bank account. And his sister is 19 and his brother is 17, so they're all on youth allowance. And they have no spare cash to be able to help him. So tomorrow at 9 o'clock, I'm going to go to the school and I'm going to ask them, like I ask every school, will you waive that debt? And will you give them an opportunity to make a payment plan with a centre pay deduction once they have their payments in place? Now, he is 16. Well, I'm not going till I get it, so it could be a short visit or a long visit. But I'm going to get it because that's what we're doing. But he's 16. Now, you imagine a 16-year-old and his 19-year-old sister advocating on their own behalf. And the reason they're in this situation is their dad got sick and then he fell into a coma. So they're going to lose their public housing that the dad and the young boy was living in anyway. That's another issue. But right now, his only priority is, I want to go back to school when it opens again on Tuesday. So that's where we're going tomorrow at 9. And the card will not help him.
Thanks. Just a quick challenge for somebody in the room. Keep fit in Parliament on June 20th. The only objective is to sit involved via Facebook. The gentleman who was sitting over here who's now left said, what can we do? Tonight's a good start for people. Whether you're for or against the card, getting involved in the political process is a good start. We need people to write to the email, to write the key pen. If I get bounced back, you'll get blocked on his Facebook. We know that. But we need to let the people know. If the editor of Newsmail gets 100 letters against the card, guess which way he's going to start writing his articles. The other thing that people need to do is when the election comes around, it could be any time, don't believe the shit from Pauline Hanson of One Nation. She'll come up here, she'll say she's for the battlers, she'll go down there and vote with LNP. That's all she does.
She's already pro-card.
Get involved as much as you can, as much as you're willing, with either the Greens Party or the Australian Labor Party, who are both publicly and loudly against this divisive and disgraceful card.
I think we need to start reminding everybody that a vote for Keith Pitt is a vote for the Liberal Party.
It's a minority group, and they're punishing young mothers who might be going onto payment for the first time ever, and they haven't done anything wrong, and all they're doing is collecting something that they're entitled to, because if you're a young mother, they want you to stay at home with your child.
Yeah. And it's low income too. I know a farmer who's 32 with a wife who's 29 and they have a 1, a 4 and a 6-year-old. They are low income. Yeah. Now they don't own their farm They lease that property and they will go on that card. And they will have to change their home loan because
It's
they're
only a
not
minor-
allowed to have a card on that particular home loan. And she can barely pay, like twice a year they may get some money in depending if they hit the market, but they don't have money to live on for 7 months of the year, and when those payments come in, it's still below the threshold.
So how are they going to go for their food and stock and their final?
They utilise emergency relief, so food vouchers. And look, we've only been extended for ER for another 6 months, and they're just about to put the new funding out. I can guarantee you it's going to have a great deal more restrictions on it than what we've been doing.
And now I've watched drug users and smokers use food vouchers, go into the supermarkets, buy groceries, take them to the returns counter, return and get all of the money for that food voucher and go spend that on either tobacco or drugs.
Oh, I know a $50 voucher is worth $40 on the street.
But what I wanted to say is, if that's a public school we're talking about, then it wasn't school fees.
No, it is. It is public and it is school fees.
No, but they don't call it school fees because public schools aren't allowed
It's
to
on
charge
textbook
school
hire.
fees.
Okay.
It's
Levies.
textbook hire.
It's levies.
Levies and hires.
And it's an optional textbook hire scheme that if you don't get, you will not get a student card, you will not get any
He can't get photo ID to open a bank account to get his youth allowance because that fee, whatever it is, has not been paid. So tomorrow we have to say, give him a card, please, and
How did we get
please
that
come
But
up
it's
with
an
a
illegal scheme to start off with.
How can he do that at 16 years of age?
No, there's a way around that. There is a way you can get photo ID without the school's help because my son got tossed out of school because he was wearing the wrong colour shoes.
Someone who I think we actually haven't heard from yet.
Senator, it's for you, the way to be trial in this town, or no Greens brought that up. What a great trial. Universal wage. Yes, and like we say, you see a lot of people saying about, you know, you're down, nobody thinks anything of you. Divide and conquer. How these governments work. Turn one against the other. Cut this one on below 35. Next time they'll cut the next one and do it slowly. Turn one against the other. That's the government.
He's not Liberal Party, he's not.
Same
Well, a vote
difference.
for Keith did is a vote for the Liberal Party.
Okay.
Because they said, we're not Liberal.
Just that one quick question.
2 months ago, the police in town and the news mail about the impact of the debit card in the community. Crime police is going to jump down with it immediately. Now, what do you like comments? I've got the police integrity website and lots of patients' comments. The Wellington Hall the next morning got a phone call from the police, head of police in Bundaberg, the new head of police, apologising for the comments that was taken out of context. It certainly had an effect with the comment on the Police Integrity Commission site that I got a phone call the next morning. So it had some impact.
How do you take that out of context? It was quite clear that he supported the cashless welfare card, that's what he wrote, and there it was. And if you are a criminal, if you commit a crime, we are coming after you.
Well, the data says they're not because there's thousands of unsolved crimes in this town of small crimes, and there's going to be thousands more.
But how many people will they push who have never committed a crime in their lives? They will push people into committing minor criminal acts.
They're going to problem solve. Yes, I know.
That's right. And everybody's going to try workarounds. You're going to get a black market and end up with people having criminal records for minor things that shouldn't happen. It shouldn't be. They're in charge of their
Okay, so what I might do now is just a few concluding comments. Your participation I found really valuable and interesting. Even though I'm upfront 100% against this card anywhere, including the existing trials, including income management in the Northern Territory, we posed it all the way along. It's still really valuable to me to hear some of those examples when I want to make the case and give those personal stories and give those examples. So I found it really valuable. I really appreciate your comment, sir. I think it is, there is no doubt in in my mind, and coming back into the Senate after 10 years, it actually is really, after a 10-year break, it really struck me very strongly. So many of the same issues being talked about, the attacks on people receiving Social Security 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Every time a new reason to squeeze something extra out of an employee, to squeeze something extra out of people on this disability pension, to squeeze and attack sole parents, the demonising of dole bludgers of sole parents, the suggestion that anybody on DSP is just faking it. It's been going on quite a while, it's sort of grand tradition in a way, but it's so much worse and so much deeper. And I think the examples people have given has shown that beyond just this card. And that really goes to, it actually really scares me as to where things can go. Things like this get much more deeper into the psyche of our community and that division that people have talked about. And the impacts that has, the real human impacts that has on people. And you know, as we all know, we're all just a random stroke out of nowhere away from having serious health issues. None of us knows what's going to happen next. We're often just that one or two things away from potentially being at risk of homeless ourselves. If we suddenly find ourselves in a society where anybody who experiences that is seen as somehow being their fault, or a bludger, or it's not their money anyway, it's the taxpayers' money. Our community is really, there's already a lot of difficulties, but really serious dangers ahead. So I think we are really, whilst this is about one single thing, the broader political values that are being contested here, I think are very serious. And that's part of why I found it valuable, was actually the inspiration to keep on fighting some of this stuff, and it's so disgusting, just to get up front. I wanted to just say on top of that as well, I mean, even the example about the school fees that aren't actually school fees, the continual way we're squeezing more and more out of people. It's not quite privatisation, but it's doing it by default. It's shifting away from that idea that we are part of society where basic services should be available for all of us. It's health services, whether it's education, only one psychiatrist and then you can't get to them, all of those things. And that's particularly the case in regional areas. And to me, it is a clear choice that you will always hear from, particularly the current government, well, the money's not there. We all know the debates at the moment about income tax cuts and company tax cuts. The money is a choice. It's a choice about what to do with the money, and if we can properly invest. I will say in regards to New Start in particular, as some of you would know, even people like the head of the Business Council of Australia, the representatives of corporate Australia, and who basically run our political system, are saying New Start is way too low. And if you want to boost your economy, this is not controversial, this is not something that's in any way disputed. If you want to boost your economy, increasing New Start payments, because that will be spent straight away. People who are on low incomes, if you give them extra, it's not discretionary income, they will spend that, that will boost your local economy. There's no doubt about that. Way more than giving money to some corporation to run a scam credit card. So those choices are key ones moving up to this next federal election. I didn't come here to make a political pitch, so for the Greens, so I won't, but I will say if you are interested in being supporting Greens or working with us, very helpfully wearing a green t-shirt. There's a few Greens members in the room, but Andrew in particular with a Greens t-shirt, feel free to approach her. But in terms of this wider issue, I will say, whatever your wider political views, as a few people have said, that the voice of the community, don't devalue it. Having been around politics so long, I am certain it's deliberate. It's deliberate on the part of the large parties to make people, and the mainstream media, corporate media, to make you feel like you can't make a difference. They want you to feel like it's hopeless. They want you to feel like it doesn't matter who you vote for, because then they can just keep doing what they want. But if you do unite and stand up strongly on an issue, often that seemingly impregnable power sometimes is built on sand. Not always, but sometimes it is. You can get victories sometimes where you really don't think it's possible when the community unites. So I really encourage you to do that. And part of that is having those conversations at community level. Sure, the shock jocks and the media and the advertising, it does have some impact. It gets into people's heads. You keep hearing about the old budgets time and time again. But the best way to break back against that isn't to try and raise $1 million to run your own advertising campaign. It's to have conversations with people in your community, genuine, authentic conversations about the real world and the real impacts. So, those of us that you do elect to Parliament, we do our job down there, and I'll certainly be continuing to put my voice forward. And some of you may know I'm stepping out of the Senate, and the rest of the voice is stepping back into it. But she'll have the same view on this issue, and passing on the same staff will be working with her, so we'll have that continuity, and we're trying to lower our seat and make some extra change that way. But politicians mostly follow, whether it's federal, state or local. We like to think of ourselves now and then. Some of us do try and stick our head out and go ahead of public opinion, but mostly follow. And if you can get clear, strong public opinion active on this issue in your local community, this is an issue unusual in the sense that it's very explicit to this community when you can have a big impact. So those letters to the paper, those conversations with your neighbours, conversations are so important. And the emails might bounce back from your local member, but actual old-fashioned paper letters don't bounce back. It might take a little while to get there on each day to post these days.
They have to answer every phone call.
But actual written letters, I can tell you, strangely enough, for me anyway, they actually have a bigger impact than emails, and the same things get so few of them these days. Some of you actually get, wow, someone took an actual letter. So feel free to just send actual letters. And it helps, it starts getting a few letters saying what the hell you're doing.
My letter from Keith Pitt the other day, I delivered it back to his office.
He writes lots of letters. They get a big budget to write, so plenty of letters.
Oh, was that his silly question?
You might not shift his opinion on this here and now, but it is an issue of this community now, but it's an issue, as a number of you have said, as a potential flow on for the whole country. So in that sense, you've got a higher duty. Those of you, you're at the epicentre of it, and those of us around the rest of the country that don't want to be subjected to the same thing, you've got that extra responsibility and that fight on behalf of the rest of the country to some extent.
Submission
try and
to the
turn back
Senate.
the tide now.
Submissions to the Senate.
So as part of that, submissions to the Senate, local conversations, letters to the paper, Parliament's part of it. Parliament is guided by and influenced by community conversations much more so than you might feel, particularly if it's across people from a range of different backgrounds and a range of different sections of the society. But yes, as an issue, coming back to where I started, the Senate Committee submissions close this Friday. Do send them through to that. Do copy them in, and we'll send you a reminder about that list, which is...
Yes, so there's lists at the front there. So you please, as you're going, and I'll pass them around now, as we're all having a bit of an informal chat, but can I just jump in, because I just had an idea and I realised that there's more than 50 people in the room tonight, which is really amazing, considering it's a school night and it's a Monday and whatever else. It's just really amazing that there are so many people here tonight. So if you're comfortable in doing so, maybe before we all finish up, and I didn't run this by anyone, this is just my own steam, so excuse me for that, but if we could get a photo of everyone maybe together, because the photos that I've been getting, there are a few seats spare, and you don't actually get the gravity of just how many people there are here tonight. So anyone for those who are keen or interested, I'd love to get a photo with everyone and Andrew, maybe at the back there or something when we're all finished up. So
if we're not computer savvy, shouldn't we be able to take this into Mr. Pitt's office and get him to send it to Canberra for us?
Personal conversation.
Just a thought, just to really rub it.
As I said, personal, even better than a letter is a personal conversation, so if you can get the personal and look, really start.
You can get it.
Okay, well we might go with that. For those of you that want to do the photos, we'll perhaps just up the back of the room, up against the wall. If you don't, then obviously just don't get in the shot. There's still some carrot cake there, so make the most of it.
Before we all get up, I'd just like to personally thank Andrew Bartlett for coming up and setting up this discussion tonight. But more importantly, I'd love to thank all of you people from our community who have decided to come tonight. If it's not just to find out a little bit more information about the Cashless card, about being a voice for our community, standing up and telling us about the experiences and stories where you see this card will impact our community. Once again, as Andrew and everyone else has said, keep the conversations going. Talk to your friends, talk to family, work associates and that sort of thing. Take a look at the Facebook groups. There's lots of information there, and you'll find links for the Senate inquiry submissions there as well. The best way to have an informed conversation is to find out the information, and those Facebook groups are probably the easily accessible point for people to gather that information. So thank you everyone for coming tonight.
Just before you all go, I'd like to pay a tribute to the former federal ALP member, state ALP member Leanne Donaldson, who was involved in a car accident this week and she's in hospital. Now that woman fought so hard last year, and she took this cause to the state government and the parliament, and she spoke at the Senate inquiry. So we'd like to send her all our wishes, because she was fighting the battle last year really hard up here with all of us, and I just want that to be acknowledged.